Eagles. Did they save their season? Is that too dramatic? I don't think so. They win 34-27, and they keep pace in a loaded NFC.
All right. Good defenses, good offenses in that game, and we have a guy right here that knows about both. Joining us right now from Maryland is a man who helped engineer one of the most dynamic offenses in NFL history with the Vikings. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. And guess what? He will be inducted into the Ravens Ring of Honor on Sunday. Woo. Please welcome to the show, Brian Billick.
Hey, what's up, Coach?
What's up, Coach?
How are we doing?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Doing great. Doing great. Now, Coach, Sunday will be a celebration of your incredible 9-year tenure in Baltimore. What does this mean to be inducted into the Ring of Honor?
You know, I don't know that it's fully set in. It was 20 years ago that my family and I came here. And, you know, 20 years and coaching years are like dog years. You know, you got to multiply them. So that's a long time ago. And I don't know that it'll really hit me until I can walk into the stadium and see my name amongst some really great players that I was able to coach, Michael McCary, Peter Boulware, Matt Stover, and the guys that are going to go on there. Ozzie Newsome will eventually be there, obviously. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Haloti Ngata next year. So that really won't hit me until I see it. And most importantly, I'm going to have my 2 grandsons with me. They don't know me in that capacity. They just know me on TV and as Pop. So it's going to kind of be fun to see, for them to experience that whole experience at M&T Bank Stadium.
Coach Billick, you operated one of the greatest offenses ever in Minnesota. You take the Ravens job, and immediately the Ravens become one of the best defenses to ever play in the NFL. When you hear the word Baltimore Ravens, now that you call the games on radio and you do the preseason, what does that mean to you, and what is that franchise in the grand scheme of the NFL and history?
Well, I think they've established themselves. They have, obviously, the pedigree. When I got there, one of the things I'm most proud of is being part of, and I was just a part of, a tremendous group of people with a new franchise. You know, I got there and there was this goofy bird on the helmet, and, you know, it was like, is this NFL, really? But because of, obviously, what you do on the field and the legacy that we've been created, and obviously it carried on. Eric DeCosta now is the GM. John Harbaugh has been brilliant as the coach there. So, yeah, we still live in the Mid-Atlantic area, and so it has established a very real NFL legacy, and that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. And the fans are obviously, they're so interactive with it. It's a great venue. It's a great love for football. And so kind of changing that culture 20 years ago is the thing I'm maybe most proud of.
Coach, the past is fantastic. You were a huge part of that. But right now, the present for the Ravens is intoxicating. They have one of the most unique offenses with one of the most unique talents the league has ever seen at quarterback. What would it have been like for you, Coach, to roll up your sleeves and build an offense around Lamar Jackson?
Wow, what a spectacular talent. Greg Roman, who was also with me early in Baltimore, has done a phenomenal job. You know, in the summer when we were doing ITC, I sat with John Harbaugh, and I kind of used Cam Newton's 2017 year where he had 139 carries. And I said, Lamar Jackson, over and under on 139 carries. And he didn't blink. He said, oh, absolutely over. And they were thinking maybe 150, 160, 170 carries, which would be unprecedented. So we've seen both of that. We've seen Lamar Jackson, when he didn't have to run the ball, was brilliant in the opener against Miami with the 5 touchdowns. And then we saw the next week when he had to run for 120 yards to kind of carry that team. So if he can stay healthy, and that's always the big question, you combine that dynamic talent, the ability to run and throw, and what is always a really good Ravens defense, this team is for real, and they're going to be in the thick of it come playoff time.
We cannot wait. Coach, congratulations. We are so happy and excited for you to get inducted into the Ring of Honor this weekend during that game between the Ravens and the Browns. But you mentioned the whole family's in town for the festivities, and you mentioned your grandkids will be there. They're in town from Ohio. So I need to know, as a coach, what's the game plan here in ensuring that these two do not grow up to be Browns fans in the midst of all this hype going on there right now?
Yeah, that's good parenting. That's what it's going to take. Because I did have to call them and say, now the boys do know they can't be wearing their Baker Mayfield and OBJ jerseys, right? This isn't gonna work because we are in Baltimore. But you know what? This is going to be their first pro game that they've ever been to. So I'm excited about that. And obviously, where they are, they're huge Ohio State fans. Yeah, and they're going to be Browns fans to a degree. But I got a feeling they're going to be dressed in. I know my daughter. They're going to be dressed in the right purple and black and be yelling "Go Ravens."
Good to know.
Now, before we let you go, let's talk about Super Bowl 35 for a minute. That defense led by Ray Lewis stacks up against the greatest defenses of all time. The Ravens held the Giants to just 7 points. Did you know going into it or even during the game that the score would be so lopsided?
Well, we had great confidence. We had seen it time and again where we had played teams who had never played us before, really didn't know how physical and how fast we were, particularly on defense. And it shocks them. We played the Denver Broncos in the first round of the playoffs. They didn't cross the 50. We then played Tennessee, and they had played us. They were in our division at the time. So very good competitive game they knew. Then we played Oakland, the leading rushing team in the National Football League. They didn't run for they didn't run for a yard. It was amazing. And again, it shocks the system. So we had a great deal of confidence going in. The one score came on a special teams return. I think the players to this day will tell you the biggest thing they lament is they didn't get that shutout in the Super Bowl that was they were deserving of because they didn't score on that defense.
Good morning, football. We are now joined by one of the best offensive linemen this league has ever seen. He was a two-time Pro Bowler, two-time Super Bowl champion with the Redskins, an Outland Trophy winner and College Football Hall of Famer. In his number 73 is hanging in the rafters at the University of Pittsburgh alongside the lights of Dan Marino, Mike Ditka, Tony Dorsett, and Larry Fitzgerald. Wow. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Mayday, Mark May!
Mayday! What's up, man? Great, man. It's great to be here.
Of
Love
course.
watching you guys all the time.
Oh, man, thank you so much. Now, we'll get into your career in a second, but I have to ask about your Redskins. If Case Keenum is healthy, I know we're all feeling that way. If he is healthy, do you think that he should remain the starter, or do you think it's time for us to see the young fella Dwayne Haskins?
Well, Colt McCoy's supposedly back healthy again, so that gives him a third option at the quarterback position. But I think stay with Keenum right now because 2 weeks from now, they play the New England Patriots. There's no way in the world I'm putting Dwayne Haskins against that defense because they're the best defense in the NFL by far. So I would wait till after that game where the schedule gets a lot easier, then insert him because the season's over. They're 0-3 right now. They're not going to the playoffs.
It's over. As a former Redskin, you're saying it's over.
Done. You think they're going to make a run and win like 10 of the next 13 games? It's not going to happen.
Well, the only way it would happen is if Haskins is really special. We've watched you in years, college football. You've seen Haskins play a lot at Ohio State. You know all about him as a player. What does he do best? And then what maybe is keeping him from being on the field right now as a player?
Picking up the offense is keeping him off the field right now and having that confidence. And they don't want to insert him with a bunch of bad players because they're injured on the wide receiver position, on the offensive line they're nicked up. Why put him in that situation? At Ohio State, tremendous athletes all over the field. Offense, defense, special teams, wide receiver. They protected him, great running back. So he was in positions at Ohio State where there are big windows where he could throw the football. So he could step up and make huge plays, particularly vertically down the field. And I think with Washington, the windows are shorter. You know that in the NFL, how small the windows are. He's not used to that yet. And he still holds onto the ball a little bit longer because he thinks he's going to be protected like a newborn baby like he was at Ohio State. So when he got tattooed in the preseason a couple times, I think in the back of his mind, he's like, let me get rid of this football a little quicker. And he's just got to get used to the speed of the game.
Mark, you're so good at what you do, man. It's amazing.
Fantastic.
Some of our younger viewers might be watching, be like, oh, I remember Mark May from TV with Lou Holtz and Reese Davis. You were a nasty offensive lineman
Talk about
in this
it.
league.
I was a good guy. They love me. Randy White still sends me Christmas cards. They don't even talk to me today. It's been like 30 years.
Let's go through the annals a little bit. A little history lesson for the viewers at home. You remember the Hogs, obviously Russ Grimm, Joe Jacoby, yourself. Then the Hogettes became a thing. You have all these women in the stands wearing the
No. They're guys.
They're guys
dressed in wigs.
Okay.
It was the 80s.
What's the history of the Hogs and what that all was? And, of course, then eventually the Hogettes.
Well, Joe Bugler, our offensive line coach, and he came in that year. That was his first year, and I was Joe Gibbs' first pick that year. So what would happen is we had a bunch of old players that were there, and then they brought in a bunch of new players. Myself, Russ Grimm was drafted in the 3rd round. Darryl Grant was drafted in the 6th round. Joe Jacoby was a free agent. Jeff Bostic was in his 2nd year. He came back from Philadelphia. So all of a sudden you had to mesh these older guys that were there, like George Stark and Ron Saul, with these young guys. So what happened is our first year, we went 0-5. They thought they were going to get fired, the coaching staff. We ended up 8-8 the first year. Next year we go to the Super Bowl and win. So we're practicing in Carlisle in summer camp. So we had a pen all the way back down in the back corner that they just sent the offensive lineman to get rid of them after warm-up. That's it. So Joe Bugle said, all right, you Hogs, let's go down to the bullpen, because he used to call it the bullpen. Right. So during that season, our first season after training camp, he comes in with the guys that made the roster, brings these T-shirts in because he wants to mesh everybody together and unify us together. And there are these special T-shirts with hogs on them, with all of our numbers on these hogs, these nasty-looking hogs with snouts and stuff like that and tusks. And it kind of unified us together. And the first thing he said is, you wear these every Thursday. and you wear these every Friday to our meetings, or you get fined
It's really
$250. Back then, that was a lot of
Of course.
a long way.
Yeah.
So that kind of unified us. And then all of a sudden, the next year we go to the Super Bowl, it just took off like wildfire. And we didn't have social media back then. We had the big telephones that were like this.
Or the Gecko.
Yeah. So what happened was all these guys.